Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another new episode of Africa Today, where we get you the latest news and events taking place on the African scene. And we'll start off with our major top stories and reports. Cairo and Beijing signed a number of deals aiming to deepen cooperation between the two sides. The deals were signed in a ceremony coinciding with the 10th anniversary of the Egypt-China Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. More in the following report.
Cairo and Beijing signed agreements deepening their cooperation during Sisi's visit to Beijing. Sisi and the accompanying officials witnessed the signing together with the Chinese President Xi Jinping in a ceremony that coincided with the 10th anniversary of the Egypt-China Comprehensive Strategic Partnership. The Egyptian delegation discussed bilateral relations and bringing stability to the Middle East in light of the Israeli-Hamas war in Gaza, according to a statement released by the Egyptian presidency. The agreements included collaboration in China's Belt and Road Initiative, which brings Chinese companies to build Chinese-funded transportation, energy and infrastructure projects overseas. China invested billions of dollars in Egyptian state projects, including the Suez Canal Economic Zone and the new administrative capital east of Cairo. Investments between Egypt and China amounted to around $14 billion in 2023, compared to $16.6 billion in 2022, according to the latest data released by Egypt's statistics agency.
Welcome back, dear viewers, and we're joined over the phone by Mr. Rahman, journalist and political analyst. Good afternoon, sir.
Well, good afternoon to you. Hello to you and the dear viewers.
Sir, how do you see the significance of President Abdel al-Sisi's visit to China and the timing of the visit?
I believe that the visit comes in a very significant time in the whole world, as we are witnessing great events, international level, in Egypt, in the region around us. We are against historic challenges that we have never faced before. In a time like this, here comes the difference between the ally, the friend, and the enemy. Today's visit, or these days visit paid by Mr. Abdel to China represents the strong relations between Egypt and China. China, one of the main allies to Egypt throughout history, throughout decades. We're talking about since the 50s, since the 60s. We are reviving that relation since the beginning of the presidency of Mr. President Abdel. We have common vision, we have common interests, and we have also common projects. I'm talking about the Belt and the Road. I'm talking about the Silk Road, reviving the historic project that connected the people, the nations of the East and the Mid-Earth and to the West and to the heart of Africa. As Egypt is the golden gate of Africa, this continent, Egypt is the leading role, the leading power in Africa and in the Arabic region. That's why we're talking about cooperation between not just Egypt and China, as Egypt is the leading role here, because we have beaten all countries around us with this historic and strong and deep relations with the Chinese counterpart, as well as we are witnessing the declaration of the China-Arab Cooperation Forum that represents and expresses how important the strategic relations, the strategic connection between Egypt and China, and follows these strategic connections that should be between the Arab countries and China. That can strengthen our own situation, confronting those challenges I'm talking about, those historical challenges. We are up against a battle of existence as Arabs, and that means we should be uniting our visions, uniting our own friends, and defying the powers of evil that is trying to eliminate the Arabs, trying to eliminate our own rights in the occupied land in Palestine. We should know now who is the friend and who is the enemy. Mr. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has maintained a very clever and unique strategy in our relations with the world, the whole world, connecting our own best interest to the east and to the west, but only what fits our own best interests. And from this concept, we have strong relations with east and west at the same time, but we still have the privilege of friendship, the privilege of trust that we can feel and have throughout our relations with such a great country like China, with common civilization, with close cultures, with close traditions, with deep roots, goes way back to thousands of years in the two nations, the Egyptian nation and the Chinese nation.
Great. Mr. Abdel, the visit comes at the anniversary of raising the level of ties between Cairo and Beijing to the level of strategic ties. Now, how have both countries benefited from raising the ties to the level of strategic ties?
It's economy that is the tongue of the time. This is the language of the world right now. And as we are holding out and holding on to our own strong relations and tackling on deepen up those relations politically, strategically, we also have expanded the horizons of our own connections and relations with China on the economical and industrial level, and also the agricultural level, because China have the same way of the same roots, the same way of building the economy here in Egypt, which is based upon excuse me, agriculture, industry, and the new lines of economy that is gathering between the governmental sector and the private sector, all together in one course. China has the same approach, and China has beaten the whole world in succeeding in such hard road to take, but successful. It can only be fruitful in the end. China is a role model that we can use in our relations with the world. We can choose this way of thinking, way of cooperation between Egypt and China as a way to develop our own economy.
Great. Sir, investments between Egypt and China amounted to around $14 billion in 2023 compared to 16.6 in 2022. Now, how do you read these numbers?
We have witnessed higher levels of cooperation between China and Egypt that we have never witnessed since decades. I'm talking about decades. We have witnessed raising the levels of cooperation economically. We have witnessed large scale of projects industrially and agriculturally came from China to enhance and deepen up their investment in Egypt, whether in the Suez Canal economical and industrial zone, as well as other great projects with the cooperation with the governmental sector and, of course, the military, economical and industrial sector. We need to enhance more, and we need to tackle more on such cooperation. It means a lot to our own economy, because this is the role model we can achieve in Cairo, in Egypt. We need this way of thinking, which is not leaning to either capitalism or socialism. We need the line in between that takes the good in here and the good from that. Only gathering the three lines, as I said, the private sector, governmental sector, and the military, economical, and industrial sector.
Sir, how has recent challenges like the war in Ukraine and developments in Gaza, which came while the world was just reeling from the repercussions of COVID, impacting the drive of economic cooperation among international blocs?
We have witnessed strong relations in confronting the epidemic, the dramatic scene that we have all witnessed, and of course, China was one of the main suppliers to Egypt to face such catastrophe, and thanks to Allah that we have passed through it with the least level of damages. And of course, with our cooperation with a great country and more trusted countries like China, we can achieve more on that level.
Great. Sir, I would like to thank you so much, Mr. Abdel Rahman, a political analyst and journalist. Many thanks for your insight. And dear viewers, we now move back to our special reports. Experts taking part in the World Future Health Africa event in Morocco said that public-private partnerships are crucial to improving African health care. The event is part of GTEx Africa, which seeks to accelerate the digital transformation in the healthcare sector on the continent, which has 1.5 billion people, by leveraging investments.
Establishing public-private partnership PPPs are crucial for improving Africa's healthcare sector, especially in developing and low-income countries. This was the key theme the World Future Health Africa event on Thursday, the second day of the second editing of GTEx Africa, being held in Marrakesh over 3 days. During the event, it was revealed that 40% of Africans lack healthcare services, and only 30% has comprehensive access to these services. Mazen Alauddin, the General Supervisor of Egypt's Healthcare Authority, affirmed that creating partnerships with the private sector is key for the development and improvement of the healthcare ecosystem in Africa, citing Egyptian expertise. Recently, Egypt's House of Representatives debated a law that would allow the private sector to operate state-owned healthcare entities. Alauddin said, "We adopt the triple I strategy in the Egyptian healthcare sector. This includes an eye on the innovations and technologies, an eye on the internal cooperation, and an eye on the international collaboration for the sake of uplifting the quality of the medical services." He affirmed that the authority is working to empower the private sector to play a greater role in the healthcare sector in the country. He added that a new draft law will be announced regulating telemedicine and its operation in Egypt. The announcement is expected to be made during the third edition of the Africa Health Ex-Con Egypt will host on the 3rd to 6th of June.
South Africa is awaiting to hear from President Cyril Ramaphosa as his ruling ANC faces a search for allies to help it from a new government after it loses its 3-decade-old absolute majority in a watershed election.
The African National Congress Party lost its parliamentary majority in a historic election result Saturday that puts South Africa on a new political path for the first time since the end of the apartheid system of white minority rule 30 years ago. Popular support for the ANC during the May 29 vote came in at 40%, with the Democratic Alliance DA at 21.8% and the Marxist Economic Freedom Fighters EFF clinching 9.5%. The 6-month-old Umkhonto weSizwe party of the country's former president Jacob Zuma, established in December, clinched 14.6% of votes. The result marks a meteoric fall for ANC from the 57.5% wrestled during the previous election of 2019, at the time the party's weakest feat since South Africa's first democratic vote in 1994. Long regarded as a symbol of liberation, the ANC has been on the back foot in a battle with the practicalities of governance in recent years, amid a rise in systemic issues such as declining living standards, chronic power outages, decades-high violent crime rates, and unemployment of almost 33%. Unlike the party's hero Nelson Mandela, who freely formed a power-sharing coalition to bridge distrust with rival parties in the fledgling years of South Africa's democracy, the ANC's incumbent leader, Cyril Ramaphosa, 71, will have to negotiate a coalition to retain dominance, kickstarting a stretch of talks and uncertainty over the country's political direction. Investors will be watching how this changes the course for South Africa's economic growth, pegged at 0.9% this year by the International Monetary Fund.
And ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this edition of Africa Today. Many thanks for watching and stay tuned for more coming up here on Nile TV International.